Hello and welcome to our discussion of the market. So in this brief lecture, we are just going to think about what is a market. It's sort of, I call it the foil to the state, so the state's opposite. And the state and the market are very much intertwined. They are sort of in a dance together. And a lot of policy making that we're going to consider in this module really comes down to the question of which aspects of society should be left to the market and which should be left to the state's public authoritative decision-making apparatus. So let's dig in here by thinking about what a market is in the first place. So here we see a farmer's market. And a farmer's market is sort of a good way to think about the market in general. A market is an area of exchange. Here we've got a farmer's market. It's an actual physical area of exchange. But the market is somewhat more abstract than that. It's an abstract area. When we talk about the market in the United States, for example, we're talking about all of the exchanges that happen within the market in the United States. And in these areas, whether it's a physical concrete place like an actual market in a town, like an actual farmer's market, or the more abstract, market of Colorado or market of Denver or market of the United States or the Northern Hemisphere or the world, we have two kinds of actors. One is firms, the producers. And so these companies essentially are going to determine what they are going to produce and what they're going to sell. And so here at the farmers market, we have farmers are the firms. And farmers are deciding which crops they're going to plant and take to the market to try and sell for the best price possible. Of course, firms can be huge. We can talk about firms as small as one farmer, but we can talk about firms as large as General Electric or Volkswagen, right? And these are all actors that are trying to, make a profit by selling as much as possible. They're making decisions to try and produce things that people want. And that brings us to our other actor, which are individuals. Individuals make decisions about what to buy, what to consume. And again, here we see in the picture these individual consumers picking out different vegetables, but of course we are all consumers that make tons of decisions about what to purchase probably every day, but certainly every month or a year. From what food we're going to buy, like at the farmer's market, to our clothes, to our car, to our insurance, all sorts of things. And so when you hear about the free market, this is essentially just allowing individuals and firms to make decisions about what to produce and what to buy without any regulation or input from the state, right? This is allowing these individual firms and individual consumers to make the decisions about what is produced and what is consumed in a society. And it works simply by the logic of sort of supply and demand, with price acting as a really important informational mechanism, letting consumers and producers know the value of things. And so this is often called the invisible hand. Here we have a picture of the invisible hand here. But these are two realms of authority when we think about the market and the state, but they are very intertwined. And so I think a lot of people of different political stripes might say, oh, I am always free market, or I think that the market always leads to bad outcomes, and people will see themselves as being, either, for the market or either for the state. That is to say, either for the private sector, which is the market mechanisms, or for the state, which is the public sector. But I'm going to argue throughout this course that actually this is a very delicate dance, as I said. It's not always market versus state, but instead a very delicate issue of line drawing between what specific elements of an issue or specific elements of a decision should be made by the state versus made by the market. So we're setting ourselves up here to think about all sorts of different issues, from healthcare to tax reform to environmental regulation to business regulation, all sorts of things, by thinking about, well, where can we have better outcomes from the market and better outcomes from the state? So to think about what outcomes and what kind of decision making the state is responsible for, remember the state is really the sovereign, public, authoritative decision maker, right? If politics is about publicly binding, authoritative decisions, the state is the main actor, our main star of our saga here, right? And so the state is going to make decisions that go for all of society. So if the president or the prime minister of a country or state says this is the law and it passes by the correct procedures and due processes, well, that becomes the law of the land, and nobody is exempted from that. You just have to do it. You have to follow the law, or you face the coercion of the state, the force of the state. Well, the logic of a market mechanism is that individuals make these decisions. Individual producers determine what they're going to produce, so firms are making decisions about what they will produce, and individual consumers are deciding whether or not they want a certain good for a certain price, right? And of course, price is conveying the information to help people figure that out, both in terms of those on the production side and those on the consumption side. The idea is that this invisible hand is going to allocate resources much better than any central authority in the state could do, right? And so if you think about trying to produce lots of shoes, the market says, well, individual firms are going to try and produce shoes, of the quantity and quality and style and size, right, that will best meet the needs of the consumer. And the firm will succeed or it will fail based upon its success at those goals. Well, the state would work by just saying, okay, we are just going to produce X number of size 7s, X number of size 8s, right? And the idea of the invisible hand in the free market is that usually the market is going to be much, much more efficient at allocating goods than a central state authority. However, and there's always a however, a lot of the times we'll see that the market can fail to provide what we might see as socially desirable outcomes. We've already met one big reason that the state exists and why we might want a state to make these decisions rather than the market when we consider public goods, which markets typically really under-provide. So markets typically will not provide enough of a public good, at least to satisfy public demand. However, we're going to meet some other aspects, things like externalities, that are also really important to consider when it comes to determining, well, should we have a market or should we have a state make a decision? So tune in for that next time. Have a wonderful day.